I've had some weird experiences lately because I was in my team. I had to sort of arrange this team gathering strategy thing for like 2-day thing, and our sort of meditation teacher dropped out right before, and this coach that I was sort of just helping out with practical stuff asked if I could sort of step in and just do like a meditation session. And so I did, then suddenly she wanted me to kind of do it for like the department or whatever, so I was doing that last week, and I'm not like, I've never been a teacher, and I don't see myself as that at all, but I was sort of thinking about what to do because the team was collaboration, and collaboration for me is being in the heart, so my stepfather taught me like Hugh 7 years ago, so I wanted to sing Hugh, so we sang Hugh, and it was actually a pretty, a nice experience. And then now the question comes, because then people are asking like, okay, well, where do you study, or like, what do you do, right? Because they sort of wanted to figure out more about meditation, I guess. And I sort of talked about everything else but this place, because I have friends and some people in family that thinks that it's a bit out of the normal sort of context or whatever, and
so is rocket science.
So
is rocket science.
Yeah, but so I was thinking, because I sort of why what's the sort of right amount of care you should have to like the context you're in, and if people thinks it weird and stuff like that, and like the general question is, to what extent is it healthy to show some sort of care or consideration to the context you're in, and to what degree should you just sort of although some people obviously thinks it's super crazy, you still share it because that's what you believe to be true.
Okay, now, number one, you then have to understand when you say be considerate towards the context you're in. What does that mean? Because now your premise is that, well, that is strange and that will be weird. Like, how do you know that? And how do you know that that situation has not been designed because they are seeking it? You're making an assumption that is blocking. And it's also my comment, so is rocket science. That's my point. It's, of course, this is not usual. That's the whole point. If you want to study something that goes beyond the horizontal reality, you need to study something that goes beyond horizontal reality. And if people think it's weird, yes, because sure. So, rocket science is strange. Most sciences are very strange to people. Physics, especially theoretical physics, makes no sense to normal people whatsoever. Most sciences are simply weird. So it's basically, although people think it's weird, basically, I think because just shut up. No, that's something is weird simply because you don't understand it in your normal definition. That is your problem. Simply because you think it's weird does not mean that it objectively is. It simply then represents something beyond your current understanding. But then saying that if you want to study and do things, of course you have to go into spaces that operate on a very different template. And you have to be prepared to do that because you cannot expand and still be in that sense of normalcy. Because if that's what you seek, you're actually not seeking to go beyond that. Again, if you want to study physics, you cannot insist on common sense. right? And it's, you have to then accept that there is something beyond it. And it means then you also have to accept, I need to let go of my bias because I cannot use that. I cannot use my common sense. So I think basically be very clear. Do not try to cater to people say, oh, this is weird. Just like put them in their place. Of course it is. It's because you don't understand. You're using a bias of a sense of normalcy that you're also saying that you then are interested in going past. Right? Be very clear that throughout human history, humans have tried to kind of go past this, and everyone who's been able to do so will be in a state that is beyond what is considered normal by those who don't understand. But once you're there, that is normal. And we live in a time right now where people are more interested in kind of going past their own limitations, their own minds. And what we do here is, study how we can do that and get results. So then we just have to let go of all these ideas that, oh, this is not normal, because it's not. Because then you get more normal. So you have to choose. You can't have both. You can't have like spiritual sciences that are also normal. It does not exist. It never has. So it's like, be clear. And do not be afraid that people think it's strange, because then be clear about why they think it's strange, and that it's simply because it's a template that they don't understand yet. And because of they are afraid of not knowing everything, then they judge that. Instead of looking at something, and the same thing when you look at many people today, they look at science, that's just stupid, that's a weirdos. We don't need science. It's the same thing. So it's using, when you look at a lot of Americans today, like in their relationship to science, or lack thereof, it's the same thing. So just like show people where they are at, because that will make them think, and then they will open their minds.
Because that's my sort of experience, is that people really enjoyed singing. It was a large group, and it was a very nice experience. And then the question is, because I know when they sort of look up, like look at the spiritual beings and stuff that they had never heard of before, that will provoke something in them.
Yeah.
And then from a pure sales perspective, would that be too extreme? Or because I'm talking really like how to sort of be as smooth as possible about it.
But again, now you're trying to state that what they are feeling is the right and true. So you're basically saying their template is something that we should justify, and we should not.
So we should not take, okay, because that's...
But basically you should be able to explain. If you want people to expand, you have to also explain the pathway. You have to explain why they are reacting the way they do and why they are wrong. It's not difficult. But you cannot justify their sense of judgment and then trying to make this something that can fit into that, because it can't. You can't teach quantum physics to stupid people. You can't. When you have religious nuts, you can't teach them science. 40% of Americans now believe in creationism. Try to have a conversation about evolution with those people. You can't. But you can explain why they're wrong. And so we cannot justify, oh, this is weird. It's like, sure, it's unusual for you. Science is unusual for normal people. Normalcy is whatever you stitch together based on your cherry picking. But remember that spiritual practices and traditions have existed on this planet forever. Not relating to that, that's weird. It's always been there. People have always been searching, and a lot of people have been able to penetrate that wall. That's also normal. So it's also pointing to traditions, pointing to this is normal. A person in touch with themselves will at some point begin that search, because we can all feel there is something more than this. I am not this. We all get there, but if you're not there yet, that's okay. But it doesn't mean that it's weird. It means that you're blind and deaf or not connected to yourself. Once you connect, you begin having these thoughts. You're beginning feeling this gravitational pull. And many people feel they get to a point where they can't stop it, they can't control it. It's pushing, it's pulling. They're trying not to, but it's impossible because it's evolution. And any person who have kind of reached the point where even the slightest drop of awakening is kind of ignited, game over. It will happen. You will be drawn in that direction, no matter how weird it is. It doesn't matter. Truth is not weird. It only looks weird from a space of illusion. And that's the thing, that as you grow spiritually, as you do all these weird things, life will become more logical. It will become less weird, more clear, and you will be able to handle life in different ways. So when you look at the result, over time you say, who's the weirdos? But again, use logic, use critical thinking, but do not kind of justify a space of illusion and try to think that we should adjust to that, because we should pull them out of it. Right? So it's also learning how to be confrontational in a positive way and making them ask questions about their own sense of reality. Because of course, whenever we are confronted with something we don't understand, the ego says, that's weird, because then we don't have to deal with it. Right? So in this culture, dealing with a spiritual presence or spiritual teacher, that's very strange. In the rest of the world, not so much. It doesn't mean that it's objectively weird. Whatever you want to study, whatever you want to achieve, you need someone who actually knows what they're doing. If you want to learn how to play the piano, you need someone who knows how to play the piano. It's not very strange. So it's also understanding, for instance, in this country, or in north of Europe, the secular approach to life is coming to its end, because it's not true. What's wonderful about it is disconnection from religion, but it's also disconnected from context and understanding life. And gradually one will have to move in that direction, because science is, right? I've been teaching scientists my entire life. They're my best audience. They actually understand what I'm saying. And they're able to build models based on what I'm saying and test them, and they work. They don't think anything is strange. And a lot of scientists in physics and quantum physics, they've studied old scriptures, because they understand that they're describing something here. A lot of the big breakthroughs in science has actually come from studying old spiritual scriptures. So it's not weird at all. It's the normal bubble that people are in. That's a complete fallacy.
Do we have time for a follow-up?
Sure.
Because, Mike?
You should be giving
Yeah, okay. I've been
Just
here for
Mike.
quite some years, and so I obviously don't think it's weird. I obviously don't think it's weird. I think it's deeply fascinating. That's why I'm still here. Right? So
yes, but it's basically how to explain
what's
it. What's
weird for in my life is that I see more and more people are asking me, what is this meditation? Can you give me some advice? And I'm giving them all advice, but the advice that I follow myself, which is the IKYA courses. And it might as well be something about, say, like a blockage in me, or me taking too much care about like the surroundings. And I've been, grappling a lot with it myself. Like, to what degree is it even healthy to take care, like to considerate others' perspective of how they perceive life. Is that even something to sort of take care of in the first place?
No.
Yeah, okay, so
Because basically it depends where it's coming from. Now,
Yeah.
it's one thing if you have information and you then are adjusting it to their belief system so they can absorb it. I do that all the time.
Okay.
But when it comes to when you realize that you're not saying something because you're afraid of how they will react, that's something else entirely. And
Because
it means,
I do that
yes,
a lot in
yes. So it
spiritual.
means that you are afraid. You're afraid of how they will see you.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have an idea how you want to be seen by these people, and then that may disqualify you. And it's that, but it doesn't have to. Because you could also say that, you know, this is so far removed from the normal sense of spirituality. This is on a very different level. This is the most kind of advanced study in spiritual principles. And it's not for most people because they're not ready. But I like to do the extreme. You know, if you want to take a stroll in the park, suggesting that you should like climb Mount Everest will be considered like, you know, that's not normal. Of course it's not. But it's also saying this is hardcore. This is the real deal. And it's not for everyone. And for many people, this is too much. Because if you want to stay in belief system, if you don't want your head to spin, don't study with me. Right? So it's also presenting this in a way that is that this is so far away that don't expect it to not be extremely confrontational. Don't expect it to not be weird. So it's also kind of placing it on that level. Because then, when we do something that is extreme and pushing the boundaries, most people like that even though they don't understand what we're doing. Right? So also placing spiritual studies in that type of framework and not as something alternative, weirdo stuff, because it's not what we're doing here. There's absolute correlation between what I teach and science. I teach the same spiritual principles to scientists. So the world is a different place, right? The world of physics are so far ahead of normal people that it's not even remotely connected anymore. So we need to understand the science has moved on and it's accelerating. And they are increasingly understanding what used to be like spiritual knowledge and spiritual principles. It's just laws of nature. It's just that. But what I teach is also how does that affect us, you know? What does this actually have to do with us at all? And the biggest discussion in science today is like, is consciousness real? Is the universe conscious? And what is that? And what then are we? Right? They're actually having these discussions. So science is moving in that direction that exclusively used to be spiritual. So it's not weird at all. Believing that the world is still the same and that the established truths and the established kind of sense of what reality is, that is real, that is weird, because science is not there anymore. When science today is relating to string theory and multiverse, right? It's just, and that is reality. So it's also making people understand that their sense of reality is so far back that what we're doing here, that is closer to how scientists today see the world. And that to most people would be shocking. Most like scientists in physics that are really kind of pushing the boundaries, everything I teach is like, sure. Right? So it's also understanding that. So what I'm teaching, it's normal. because it's real. And most of the things I teach can now be tested. Not necessarily fully, but one can test aspects. So, there's also confronting people with their sense of reality being completely outdated. So, yeah, I think we need to be more confrontational in a good way and try to inspire people, because inside, we're all spiritual beings. Inside, we know why we are here. And remember, this is not the same planet it was. The consciousness is not the same. There is a collective awakening. And it's also recognizing that. So no matter what belief system people have, their sense of reality and themselves, they are searching. They don't necessarily know it, but they are. So there's also understanding that life will also place you and everyone else here in situations where you can be, an arsonist, and basically get the fire going, but it's for you to be smart about it and figure out how to do it. But then you also need to be able to have authority and to be clear and make it interesting. To understand that going far beyond what you know, going far beyond your sense of what's normal, that is exciting. And that's what we all have to do. And we all end up there at some point. Because the collective sense of what is real is complete bullshit. And science has proven it. Right? So be more ballsy, but kind of learn how to kind of represent it. Because this is about studying spiritual principle, which is then natural laws, without all the fluff. But then, how do we transform? Most people find it interesting. So don't be afraid, be intelligent. Because I completely understand, like in some situations it can be tricky, but it's not like we are here trying to sell belief systems. We want people to kind of be in their own consciousness, on their own path, figure things out on their own. And my job is to give all of you what you need in your own studies in life so you can become competent and awake in your own right. And I think many people are not drawn to so-called spiritual work. They kind of connect with that because they don't want to be like part of a belief system. It's not what they want. And that is one of the kind of the core, I would say, values of what we're doing here. So it's also explain that, right? Be clear about what this is instead of letting them make up their mind based on their reactions. Because you can completely just pin them to the wall. And I think we increasingly need to do that because sometimes that's what people need in order to see their own bullshit and connect. So I think it's an excellent question because many of you are kind of in the same situation. This is also why I'm talking about this extensively, because it's about trying to grow out of this, oh, this is so strange, it's not. And it's for all of you to learn how to represent it in a way that enables other people to connect with it. But people will have emotional reactions based on everything, and it's also, the job of all of you to try to kind of have intelligent conversations around it that enables people to basically just cut through all that fluff. So that's that.